There, we're on. All right, welcome everybody to our school orchards and food forests. And as in the blurb about this session, we have two experts in the field. Scott McMillan is from W.P Wagner in Edmonton, and Dustin Bajer has done many projects with schools and with Sustainable Food Edmonton. And so I'll just leave it at that, and they can introduce themselves. And I believe that Scott's going first. Am I right?
Sure.
And so whenever you're ready, Scott, if you want to talk about yourself, and then you could share your screen.
Yeah, so yeah, my name's Scott McMillan. Just give me a second here. I'll share my screen. I think this is what I'm doing. Yeah, so I have this kind of worked into my presentation here, but I'm from W.P Wagner High School. I've been W.P Wagner High School, that should be my big screen now. So I'm running a program. We have had horticulture at our school for 50 years, basically. And as you can see, we have this beautiful greenhouse here that we work with. So I want to talk a little bit about the program before I get into the orchard, so you can understand what we're working with here. So it's been a program, like I said, for about 50 years. In its peak, at the highest participation rate, I guess, there was 2 full-time teachers, 4 full-time techs, and hundreds of students would take the program every year. Now, there's me. I am a part-time teacher for this program, and then I just teach. I also teach science as well. And I get about 90 students a year right now. I changed the name to Natural Science. The goal there is to try and attract a few more students, and not to just kind of not be so focused on the horticulture part of it. There's a lot of other things students are interested in as well. Yeah, and so in the future, this program, I see it really kind of, this is one of the projects my students are working on right now called the Grow Room. That's an open source project put out by IKEA of all people. And we have a CNC machine at the school, so we would print out all those pieces and you hammer them all together. And so that's just one thing I have some students working on right now. But yeah. So the idea here is that if you shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll be among the stars. So I fully endorse the idea of just allowing students to come up with projects. And I'll almost never say no, even if we can't get her done all the way to the end of it, then at least we've learned a lot along the way. So so the types of things that we have in my school. So there's W.P Wagner from Google Earth, and then you see there's the greenhouse, and that's my orchard right there. And so I'll obviously get into the orchard quite a bit here. So I have a classroom, I have a workroom, there's a soil room, there is the head house, which is the walkway to the greenhouse. Then we've got greenhouse number 1, greenhouse number 2, greenhouse number 3, a couple pictures there. And so it's about 5,000 square feet of greenhouse total. And there's our orchard. So the orchard is right there. It's about 6,000 square feet right now. We've got about 20 trees in there. Those are older trees. This greenhouse has been here for a long time. I'm unsure as to when those trees were planted, but best guess is about 30 years ago. And so we've got some apple trees in there. We've got plum trees, we've got cherry trees, hascap bushes, and currant bushes. Those last 3 we planted just last year. The other ones, there's also pear. I didn't include that, but there's also an old pear tree in there as well. That's our big one that will be flowering right away here probably. And yeah, I did receive a grant for this orchard just last year, and so I'll talk more about that as we go on. Okay, so school orchards. So ours is about 20 to 30 years old. When I came into the program about 3 years ago, I noticed that the orchard was old, unmaintained, overgrown. I had no idea what to do with it. I'm not an orchard guy. I was just kind of like, okay, what do we do? And we kind of sat on it for a little bit. We were focused on the greenhouse quite a bit. And then I started getting some students interested in the orchard side of things. Found out about the grant, because my budget every year is $2,000. So that doesn't go far in an orchard like this. So found out about the grant, applied for it, and now we've been doing a lot of great work in there. So I'll show you some before and after pictures later. So I guess if you're thinking about starting an orchard, I just kind of came up with these 5 ideas about how to get her going. So I think first of all is just to go for a walk around your schoolyard, dream and think about it. Where can you put it? It doesn't all need to be put together necessarily. My orchard, obviously 20 trees, but I mean, an orchard can be 5 trees, you know, it doesn't have to be 20 trees like this one. So just think about what do you want and get students involved with that as well. Then after that, then you got to just plan it out. What kind of trees do you want? Do you need 2 of those trees? Do you need only 1 of those trees? You know, do you need a pollinator, for example, that type of idea? Design it. Where are you going to put them on the school site? Plant them and grow them, and then teach and use them. And that's basically now we're constantly doing all 5 of these all at the same time, you know, where it's not like once you get to 5, you're done. It's just, you know, we're constantly dreaming and thinking at our school, where can we put more trees? What can we do? What can we learn? What can we work on? So why would you have a school orchard? I think it's a perfect school project. I think it really brings together a lot of cross-curricular connections. You know, I mean, we are seeing students being disconnected from their food chains and not understanding where their food comes from. That connects students to the land and to those ideas. Once again, I like the idea that it also involves community partners. So again, to me, that's an important bit of it, because you're not just isolated in a school. There are people around who are willing to help and willing to show what can be done really with your spaces. And so that's just one, I love involving community partners and getting some experts in the area out to explain to us what we can do. It enhances school grounds. It attracts pollinators and birds. It is actually relatively low maintenance. You know, there's a couple things you need to do. And a lot of people worry about, like, for example, what do you do in the summer when the students are gone? Well, the orchards are nice because you literally just let them go. You don't need to do much in the summer. A lot of your maintenance can be done in the spring and fall for orchards. So you have a really big bonus there of pretty low maintenance in the summer, I find. And so what kind of things do I do with the students in there? We do soil testing. So I'll send our soil out to be tested. That's our results right there. And so you can see different macronutrients there. We've got the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and then it even gets into some of the micronutrients there as well. Gives you pH, gives you all sorts of different parameters to kind of look at. And so one thing we noticed was that our soil was really low in nitrogen. And so we're going to start to mulch in the area, hopefully increase that nitrogen without fertilization, try to actually get that naturally a little bit higher than it is right now. We also every year will go out for a walk around the orchard now and kind of just take a look at the different trees and see where some cuts can be made. We're getting a lot of help with tree-link arboriculture, Alex McCormick for that. So he's been helping us out with that quite a bit, working with my students. He came out, man, I think he did 3 workshops with my students last spring. Which included the soil analysis and then a tree pruning demonstration and then just a general talk about orchards and the ground and everything like that. I also use it in my science classes because then we talk about pollination, we talk about photosynthesis, habitats, all sorts of other things can be worked into that. And then in the fall, you get to go out and just pick your fruits and eat them as well. So that's always a big bonus. I do want to mention in Edmonton, we do have a great organization called Operation Fruit Rescue. They're amazing. Obviously, with COVID, my whole program's been decimated in a way because of COVID. But one of the things we had planned every fall, obviously, is we have a welcoming barbecue usually with the students, and the plan was to get Operation Fruit Rescue involved, because we would be having this barbecue kind of almost right beside the orchard. And one of the cool things they'll do is they'll come out and they have a pedal powered juicer. And so it's basically the students sit on a bike, they put they put fruits in a juicer and they pedal, and then it makes the juices right on site. And I've been wanting to do that for the last 2 years now, and COVID has shut that down. They also have their own orchard, and they also have their own workshop. So I think Alex just did an online pruning workshop, man, I want to say like within the last month anyways, and they'll have another one, I believe, scheduled for the fall. Calgary, I'm not sure if everyone here, where everyone's from here, but Calgary also has a similar organization called Calgary Harvest. And also, I'm not sure what Edmonton also has Fruits of Sherbrooke, and I have not really had much contact with them, so I'm not sure exactly. I think they're more on the market side of things, so from what I saw. Yeah, so I just have we've been really kind of now, it just been for us, our work in our orchard has just been in the last year and a half. And so you see there, some of my students there planting I believe that would be currant. That could be Hascap, but I think that one's currant. And yeah, so I think I'll just show you. Oh yeah, and grants. I want to finish off with grants here. I forgot about that. So I have received 2 grants in the last 2 years here. One of them called the Farm to School Salad Bar Grant, and the other one was $3,500 from Tree Canada for fruiting trees. And so I basically, yeah, I mean, I would strongly recommend getting grants for this type of thing. The Tree Canada grants are obviously the most applicable to orchards. They actually do have ones that are specifically for school orchards, and so they're really, really decent grants, $3,500. They allowed me to use some of that money for the maintenance side of things. Maybe I'll just get right to the pictures now. So here is what my orchard, this is kind of what I came into. My plan was to be on site today and kind of walk around the orchard with you guys, but I am isolating right now. Positive case in one of my classes, so I'm isolating for the next 2 weeks, so I'll have to do this by picture. So here is what the orchard used to look like. And if you know anything about trees, those are well overgrown. Those should have been kept way smaller. You really kind of only want 1 liter instead of dozens of liters on some of these trees. This orchard, because it's so old, it's using actually old techniques of orchards that aren't used anymore. So back then, I mean, if you know, apples trees take decades to develop sometimes, and so what they did back when they made this orchard, the trees themselves do well in Edmonton in zone 3, but there's not many apple trees that do well with the root system. The root system will actually freeze out in the winter and die out. And so what all my trees pretty much have been grafted, obviously. So you have the tree, which is then grafted to a crabapple root, no matter what type of tree it is. And so I've got about 5 varieties of apples growing there. And it was so overgrown that the roots had sent out shoots. And so I had trees where you would have one type of apple about maybe about 6 to 8 feet up. Okay, so they were bigger apples. And then if you looked up way above that, like about 10 to 12 feet in the air, you'd have another type of apple way up there. And those were the crab apples from the roots. And from what I understand, they have stronger root systems now, a lot of trees, and they don't use that hybrid system a lot anymore. But yeah, so there's the old pictures, overgrown weeds, overgrown grass all around, and well, definitely overgrown trees. So yeah, we get in a little bit further. I'll just scroll. Then we got Alex. Alex came out. This is him doing the workshop. You see a couple of my students there watching him prune a tree. So he used use the big long stick there. Also use the what do you call it, like a chainsaw, and then he chipped it all the stuff in front of the students as well. And this is it after. So obviously we still haven't taken care of the ground yet. We do have some mulch that I would strongly recommend if you need mulch and you're in Edmonton. I believe Calgary has this as well. Go with Chip Drop. Chip Drop is a great company that will connect you with arborists, and you'll get free mulch basically. Since the arborists need to pay to get rid of that mulch, it's better for them just to drop it somewhere. And at my house, we're redoing our front lawn right now to turn it into a food forest, and we've received 2 dumps of mulch for free so far to cover our entire lawn. So yeah, this is our new orchard now, and this is what we have to work with. So you can see before where there would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different things coming out of here. Alex really, by the way, the work that Alex put in was, man, I want to say that he worked at least 3 days in the orchard. Long days kind of working on all this. So that was pretty amazing. So yeah, there's our new orchard. Now I think people will kind of walk through it instead of just around it. It's not as much of an eyesore as it was before. You can see all the bigger ones there, the bigger logs that he couldn't chip. And then you can see this is just the mulch we got from Alex's work. He just left that for us so that we could put that into the orchard. So yeah, that's what we're doing at W.P Wagner. We've just kind of started, and it's exciting. It's exciting work, and my students love it, and the apples are delicious. So the soil testing, by the way, I got done by Element. Okay, Element is a company in Edmonton. Tree Canada, there's Tree Canada there. So this is the where I got the grant from, and Tree Link is the company that I use to actually do the trimming. And like I said, I mean, if you're looking for a company to do any type of work for trees, I would strongly recommend these guys, because Alex will work with your students as well. And that was even with COVID, I was able to get him out because he didn't have to go inside the building. So we were able to do our workshop outside, and it was approved and everything like that. So that was pretty awesome. So, and he's okay with me name dropping. I already checked. So he's fine with that. So that's all I have. If you guys have questions later, I think are we gonna do questions at the end?
Yeah, I think we might as well go through Dustin's and then see if they're still unanswered.
Okay.
So Dustin with Sustainable Food Edmonton and many other things. Can you introduce yourself further?
Sure. Yeah. While we're looking at Alex, though, oh no, we're not. I just want to throw another vote of confidence his way. I've worked with Alex in the past, and he's phenomenal. Really genuine guy, very interested in supporting community and school projects, and very knowledgeable, especially with all the fruit bearing stuff that we can grow here. So my name is Dustin Bajer, and I work for, I have a few different hats, but I'm kind of here today on behalf of Sustainable Food Edmonton. My background is education, so I spent 10 years with Edmonton Public, most of that at Jasper Place High School, doing lots of urban agriculture projects with students, and I'll show a couple different pictures. And then that kind of led me to some community gardening initiatives. And so that led to some community gardening projects. And eventually I started working with Sustainable Food Edmonton to help schools set up urban agriculture initiatives, which could be anything from growing basil on your windowsill in your classroom to digging up the football field and turning it into a orchard or food forest. No one's taken me up on that yet, but one day it's going to happen. Coming for you, football field. So I am going to talk a little bit about food forests in particular, and something called permaculture design. So the idea is to try to mimic some patterns and principles that you'd find in the natural world and to incorporate them into a food producing system, something like an orchard, as an example. And so I will share my screen. Okay. Okay. Do you see what I see? Perfect. I got a thumbs up. Excellent. So I thought I would kind of briefly go through a little bit of kind of food forest theory, show you some examples from around Edmonton, some of them with schools, and then we could kind of, I think, come back together and for some Q&A, and we can talk about maybe some specific applications. One thing that I think Scott did a really good job of was talking about the benefits to students. And so I'm going to kind of lean on him a little bit and say, yes, all of that stuff, because I'm going to get a little bit more into the I guess, the design theory. So let's take a look at a forest, because that's essentially that's the model that we're trying to use when we're working with a permaculture design or working with food forestry. The idea is that in a forest, you don't have to till it or weed it. You don't have to go and squish all the little bugs. There's a diversity of things there. So if a pest comes in, it's probably not going to wipe the entire thing out. And so really you because of the diversity that exists in a forest, it's much less work to maintain, and they can be highly productive systems. And so what lessons can we draw from that in order to produce food? And one example that I like to give, I start with, are these two organisms here. So the one on the left is a mushroom that you'd find here in Alberta, and it grows underneath these poplar trees, these trembling aspen. And what the mushroom is actually just the fruit of the organism. The actual organism is underneath the forest floor, and it is decomposing leaf litter and past trees that have fallen over. And what it'll do is it'll bring nutrients and water to the trees and feed them. And they do that because the trees can actually do something totally different. They can photosynthesize, produce sugars, and send it back to the mushroom. And so they're sharing resources. And the fact that these two things are very different, the fact that they have like two different superpowers, means that they can come together in this novel way in which they both benefit. So two mushrooms sharing resources, they will absolutely benefit. Two poplar trees sharing resources, they will absolutely benefit. But the fact that these two things are very different, the diversity there is kind of their strength. And if you find these patches when you're out mushroom hunting, you'll find like a whole network of them. There's not going to be one or the other. It's going to be this underground system of roots and mycelia that are all sharing resources. And you can start to think about links between these organisms as or relationships as being important for creating resiliency. And so a tree growing on its own, it doesn't mean it's going to die. It's just it's there on its own, and it doesn't have the benefit of all of those kind of partners around it. A fungi on its own, it doesn't mean it's going to die, but it doesn't have the benefit of all of those partners around it. But if you start stitching them together, then you start building up this this kind of network of support. And if you come across with your sort of ecological scissors and you cut a few of these networks, the whole thing, still kind of holds together. And so if we look at the individual on the bottom right with 3 connections, it's well connected to the network, but a little less connected than the individual in the center, which has 8. And so we could say, just strictly based on relationships, the tree in the center is the most resilient to shock, like a pest or a disease or lack of water. And the reason why I like to talk about this when we talk about food forests is it gives us, I think, a really good tool. Excuse me, a little tickle in my throat. Gives us a good tool for thinking about relationships as the sort of building block of ecosystems, and as sort of the building block of our food forest. So if you want to create a food producing system that behaves like an ecosystem, you have to think about it in terms of connections. And the more connections you can create, the more opportunity there is for the sharing of resources, and the more resilient the system tends to be, and the less reliant it tends to be on, say, a single individual or group to manage every single aspect of it. If you zoom out and we start adding other organisms here, you can see that not all of these relationships are mutually beneficial. The squirrel that lives on the tree and eats the fungi doesn't necessarily benefit from hawks, but the hawks benefit from the squirrels. So it's you know, it's a little bit more complicated now because not all these relationships are symbiotic. But if you jump out to like a whole forest, there's so many relationships here, so many connections that that you end up with something that is really, it's a net. It holds on to resources and it cycles them. And the example that I like to give is if you walk out into a parking lot, there's not a lot of connections or relationships with just a slab of asphalt. And if you throw a cup of water on that, there's not many things for that water to do except evaporate and disappear. But if you take that same cup of water and you walk into a, you know, an orchard or a food forest or, you know, regular ecosystem and you dump it in there, it's going to get absorbed by the soil and the organic matter. There's going to be a whole food web of things living in that soil, and it's going to end up in those organisms. It's going to end up in plants. Those plants are going to be consumed by other things, which are going to consume each other, which, you know, maybe some of them defecate back on the ground, and you end up with these cycles. And so every single resource in a system like this gets used multiple times, which is the same as having more resources, right? So you can bring your garden more water, or you can create more connections in your garden so that it uses the water there more efficiently or more effectively. I think that this is particularly interesting in cities because often a lot of the things that, I think the solutions that or a lot of the problems that cities have, things like ecology or food forests are sort of solutions for. Obviously there's humans and the need for food. And I think in the context of a school, you've got all these connections with the curriculum, and you've got all these learning opportunities that you can find here. But even things like in cities, we're scared of water because too much water in the wrong place causes a flood. Well, ecosystems are fantastic at absorbing water. In cities, we have excess, you know, nutrient, which we would call waste, either in the form of compost or wood chips. And ecosystems are good at putting that to productive use. And so I think one way to think about food forest in the context of a school or in a city is to think about a lot of those sort of social and built environment relationships that we can build in. Is a sidewalk, you know, a transportation corridor, or is it also thermal mass and a water harvesting device, right? So we're thinking about the things in our environment or in our design as having multiple roles. So that's kind of that model. Kind of looking at our time here. This is one heck of a strange looking garden that we, it'd be about 10 years ago now, we put in at Jasper Place High School in the school's courtyard. And so the idea was to put in a whole bunch of edible perennial plants. And so here's a couple students just wetting down some cardboard, which is going to kill the existing lawn. And then we took all of the straw in the background and built this soil on top of it. But we all tried to think about the built environment. So it's not just like a garden in a courtyard, but what can the courtyard offer? So it's protected by building, that's thermal mass. We have the situation here where the site is designed to shed water. Well, you know, we don't want to cause any floods, but we also don't want to drain all that water away from the site and then have to go in and water it. And so what we did is we played around, we observed the water on the landscape. We realized that it all moved against this lip here and flowed to the center of the garden where there's a drain, and it disappeared. And so we ended up drilling a couple holes in the side of the concrete just so we can divert some of that water into our beds, and we put in a big water harvesting structure within the beds so we could hold that water directly under the garden. So consciously trying to design the need to water out of the system so that as educators, as students, we didn't have to be there all the time watering this thing, so that it wouldn't die on a hot day. This is what it looked like at the end of summer. So that would be the spring, that would be the fall. It's pretty quirky looking. It's pretty quirky looking, but there's 80 different species of edible perennial plants. Most of them herbaceous, stuff that like dies back to the ground, like rhubarbs and there was all kinds of perennial salad greens. There were even some nettles, which we didn't consciously plant, but the culinary instructor liked. We've got all kinds of like angelica and lovage, and as well as some woody plants like saskatoons, currants, grapes, gooseberries. We all managed to fit in this little site. This was another kind of iteration of it outside of the school, where once again we put in a lot of those perennial plants. This is not a typical food forest here. This is not what you think of when you think of a food forest, but we still tried to think about it in terms of connection. So this was a living wall some students designed and put together, but like, how can you take that project and tie it to the science program of studies? How can you tie it to what's happening in construction? How can you tie it to the culinary arts program? And so while the students are testing out some tropical plants here, the ultimate goal was to get herbs into that garden so that the culinary arts students could be harvesting it. And so in this case here, it's less about ecological connections and more about the social and pedagogical connections that you'd find in this environment. This is a garden in a home that I was at in Westmount. And so taking a look at it, trying to take this crazy subterranean pipe here is taking all the water from the house and the garage and sticking it underneath the garden. And so while the vast majority of these plants aren't perennial plants like you'd find in an ecosystem, most of these are annual vegetables. The idea is to try to work with the environment that's there to build as many of those connections and relationships as possible. I was fortunate in 2014 to be able to work with the city of Edmonton on some food forestry projects in the river valley. And so this is McKinnon Ravine, where we put in a few thousand edible perennial plants, all native. So things like saskatoons, currants, gooseberries, beaked hazelnuts, high bush cranberries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. And every summer for 4 years, we would revisit this site with volunteers and add a few more thousand plants to it. But we played around with the site a little bit, and we tried to figure out how to connect it to the existing ecology that's there, how to play around with the topography a little bit to get the water that would normally just run off that site to soak into the ground. And this is a strange garden that I helped design over at Park Allen, which is not far from the school. And so they ended up putting a nice like a bed in it for specifically for the I want to say the kindergarten class, maybe it have been the grade 1 class. It's a very strange looking garden in that it's not sort of square to the world. They didn't want to have raised beds and separate plots. They wanted to garden things communally. But we realized that there was a very slight slope, I say slight slope to the environment. And we realized that also all the snow from the skating rink would get piled up next to the skating rink. And we realized it all melts in the spring. And could we change the topography slightly so that when the water melts, instead of it just kind of disappearing, we could get it to flow and spread out across the garden. And so here's those big swales, which end up being our walkways on what we ended up calling this sort of pea pod garden. And then here's the results after a year. So once again, there's no fruit trees here per se, but trying to think about the garden in terms of how do you build in connections. So thinking about it like we're thinking about an ecosystem. For the last few years, I have been really interested in growing plants, specifically to try to get into gardens. around the city. I'm very interested in supporting specifically school projects and community garden projects. And so I've been trying to do things like identify interesting local varieties of plants or particular plants to propagate from. So here's a nice big sugar maple in Glenora that was planted in 1890, doing very well. Wild gojies growing in the city of Edmonton that were first brought over by our early Chinese community as food and as medicine. Apricots that were guerrilla gardened on 75th Street that were brought over from Harbin, China in the 1930s and guerrilla gardened by some researchers from the Brooks Research Station in Southern Alberta. Black walnuts that you find hidden in backyards. Not that I'm jumping over the backyards, I'm talking to the people in these trees, and trying to grow them out in a nursery. And so this is a little bit of a tangent, but in the event that anybody in the room is interested, I have now been growing out hundreds of lots of little trees, many of them edible. And if anybody in the room is interested, I am trying to put together a tree subscription service to help crowdfund getting local plants into local community projects for the purpose of growing food, beautification, but as well as mitigating some of the challenges associated with climate change that we're already experiencing. I am using the tongue-in-cheek name right now called Shrubscriber. I don't know if I'm going to stick with that one, but the goal is to connect community projects like schools, like community gardens with people growing trees. So not just myself, but a network of people growing trees. Could be a group of students who want to grow out a bunch of something, as well as with people who want to support and see that kind of work that's happening. But if that is something you're interested in, feel free to email me. I'll throw my email address in the chat. And but let's head back to the group here, and we'll I guess jump in for some discussion and group questions.
So I was hoping that everybody would introduce themselves and say where they are, because some connections might be made that way too. So I'll just call you from my screen. So Alvera introduced herself just to a few of us. So Alvera, do you want to start again?
All right, here we go. Hi, my name is Elvira Faulkner. I live in the Highlands and very much into greening our city. Started with my own garden. It's entirely edible garden, food forest. And then the children started junior high at the Waldorf School, and we had the opportunity to further project there into a full food forest. And we're just learning and going as we can, and trying to make those connections so that we can learn more. And we have a wonderful group there that supports what we're doing through the Waldorf Otwell Community Garden, as well as the school has been wonderful. So we're still looking to make it bigger and better.
Well, thank you. And next one over is Chris Anderson.
Okay, you guys can hear me?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so I'm Chris Anderson. I teach at Victoria School of the Arts, normally head up the film program, but very interested in the urban agriculture at our school. Grew up farming myself and still help with our family farm in Red Deer cattle farm, which also means we have lots of wonderful manure, which is great. And then also my house on the southwest end, I've got an orchard with about 26 trees and large gardens and stuff like that there. Just, you know, frustrated farmer in the city, as it were. But yeah, very excited because we also have solar panels on our school, and we're getting into a culinary arts program to try and improve the basically all the kids at our school tend to go to all the fast food in the area, and we're trying to get them staying in the school, eating a lot better. So what can we do for the next 5, 10, and knowing that things sometimes take a decade to grow and really become productive. So yeah, thank you very much for putting this on.
Yeah. And next over is B Mac. I'm not sure.
Oh, hi. My name's Barb, actually. I'm a teacher at Horse Hill School, and I teach kindergarten there, have for a number of years. We have a lot of property there. A very, very big piece of land, and we are looking to develop a community orchard. So we are here, I'm here with my principal, Nuha Alali, and we're here to get some more information, and I'm amazed by the expertise here. It's just amazing. So thank you, everyone. Great.
And so over to Nuha.
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see some familiar faces. Scott McMillan, Dustin. I worked with these two fellas at Jasper Place High School, so there's nostalgia in this presentation for me. I don't know if I'm as good a presenter as Dustin and Scott, though. They're just, they came. So.
Paige for me.
Oh, Paige, right. Yeah, we've hopped around, but thank you so much for this opportunity. Like Barb so astutely said, I'm the principal at Horse Hill School. We have an unbelievable, tranquil community here with tremendous space. We've gone into partnership with the city of Edmonton, as well as some of the local land developers here. So we're building a orchard, an outdoor orchard, as well as an outdoor classroom. And that's going to be taking place in the next couple of years. We're super excited about all these really wonderful partnerships. And we just want to learn from the experts and see how we can even collaborate between Highlands, which sounds incredibly exciting. And what you're doing, Scott, like what a wonderful opportunity for all of our kids once COVID passes, for us to kind of come together and bring some of these pieces together. So thank you so much for putting this together for us today.
And over to Michelle.
I guess I'm the odd man out because I'm not even from Edmonton. I live over by north of Rocky Mountain House. I am a county councillor, but I also, my business on the side is I raise pasture-raised chickens in my orchard. So I came on tonight to kind of learn a little bit more because I want to branch out more into the agriculture tourism with culinary. In that sense, with food forest and the fruit trees and as such. I'm very blessed to have a few other local farmers in the area who have a couple of organic orchards in regards to berries, Haskell, Saskatoon, sour cherries or prairie cherries, and raspberries grow well in my area. I am a zone 2, so I am very close to the eastern slope. So I get the first or the last frost and the first frost, you could say. So very trying. But my biggest nemesis in my orchard is the deer. So everything is fenced off there. So, but yeah, looking more for opportunities to during open farm days that are the middle of August in order to bring families and into to experience a little bit more of this on a hands-on, more personal one-on-one basis. So anyways, interesting to hear about all your projects, and I am yeah, very supportive of all that you're doing in the city. It's great. Thanks.
Well, I wonder, Michelle, if you didn't partner with a teacher in Rocky Mountain House High School that could do something like Scott, and so that you could have students who are doing their job. What is it called now? Where the kids would go and do job training in an orchard. That would be
like
fast.
work experience. Work experience is what
Yeah.
you're saying? Yeah.
Or even work with an arborist and come over to your orchard. Like there's a lot of synergy there.
You bet. You
Yeah.
bet. Thank you.
Yes, and down to Shelley. Maybe we'll go over to Laura. Laura's on the board of Alberta Food Matters. Welcome, Laura.
Hi. Yeah, sorry, I was working until 3 minutes ago, so kind of multitasking. But I was joining in. I actually work with all the First Nation communities in Alberta, and I know some of the Treaty 7 communities down south have experimented with food orchards, but just wanted to learn a little bit more. And it was great, Scott, that you put in those funding streams where you've been successful in getting funding. So I'm actually Googling those on the side and seeing what's open right now. So thank you for the presentation.
Well, if Shelley doesn't come on, okay, so I'm just going to go to, I don't know that I saw many questions there, but I had a couple of questions. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. And if I missed one, then you could just jump right in. Yep. So a question about the chipper tree link guy are they only Edmonton area?
Well, the specific one that I worked with there, Tree Link, yeah, he works Edmonton and area location, yeah, because he's a one-man operation pretty much.
Okay.
I think he contracts some people when he needs help, but yeah, he's pretty much a one-man operation, and he's an Edmonton guy. I found him by fluke, and I was looking. The first guy I had out, I just started phoning arborists, and the first guy I had out, because that was so important to me, was to have someone who would work with my students. And the first guy was this old, I don't know, nothing wrong. He was like, I'm sure he was great at trees, but I was like, I want you to work with my students. And he's like, yeah, okay, why? I'm like, because it's a school and I don't want to not involve the students. And he had no idea what I was even talking about. And then the second person I phoned was Alex, just out of the blue. And Alex was just like, no, this is what I do. He's like, because Alex actually works with Operation Fruit Rescue. He's on the board there. So, yeah.
Cool. I see that Shelley had messaged me that she's just listening to learn from everyone. And then I had a question about, Dustin, you were talking about your tree. Is this mainly for your tree orchard, you're growing that you want to go to schools? I'm wondering, is that just for the Edmonton area? Or
yeah, no, I'm pretty open to it. And so I'm still figuring out some details on that, but I've found myself accumulate a few hundred trees. They're small, so they're easy to move and easy to transplant, but most of them are edible. Yeah, I think really I just want to see them go to a good home, to a community that is going to enjoy them. And I think if you can mix, like if you can work that into a school, I'm really into it.
Yeah, because I was thinking, what if a school was having a project and the school was in Southern, like what if Laura hears about some school that's doing a project that's somewhere else in the province? It'd be great if they could access that.
Yeah, I've mostly been kind of talking to people in the local area, but that's just geography. So if a school in Lethbridge or Calgary or Grand Prairie needs some trees, I'm trying to create a mechanism that would get trees to them.
Cool. Well, I'm wondering about your, so where did I put that? Shrub scriber. Would that be a way to
could I just get a little like thumbs up, thumbs down on that name? Is that a good or terrible name?
I think it's great. So your shrub scriber, would that be a way to communicate with you about the trees?
Do you know what I'll do is I'm gonna just throw my email in the chat. It's very easy. It's just my first name and my last name at gmail.com or epsb.ca. Either one of those works. And yeah, I would be happy to chat with you. Like I said, I'm still figuring some stuff out, like how exactly is that going to work? Because I'm sort of building two things at once, like building up a list of communities who want trees and a list of people who want to see trees in communities. And so I'm actively in the middle of that.
Because something else that I think about schools is, what if kids were to do what you're doing, that they are just like, I can see some kids being very excited about just planting seeds, getting the seedlings going, and then just having a project of getting them out there. I just want my trees to get planted.
You would be surprised at how many trees you can grow in a small space. So, I mean, even things like some of those apple varieties that Scott has, apples don't come true to seed at all. the plant you get from the apple seed is going to be very different than the tree that produced it. But those would be really good for grafting. And so I could see something like a horticultural class at like a high school level, growing out a whole bunch of apple seedlings and then grafting known varieties onto it or local varieties onto it, or even just something like we can grow white and black walnuts. So those are pretty easy. You collect those, you stick them in the ground in the fall, and in the spring you get little walnut trees.
Cool. So I'm not seeing any other questions. Anybody want to ask these guys? Oh, there, Chris.
Chris has
Go
a
ahead.
question.
Yeah, a question for you guys is what are some suggestions about protecting from certain types of pests, especially things like rabbits, voles, and deer, as we could see from those? What are some suggestions?
Well, with the little trees at the nursery, I have had a little bit of vole and rabbit damage in the past. This last year, I used a product called, I think it's called Skid. It's basically, it just makes them like unappealing. It just doesn't smell good. It seems to have worked fairly well. That's not really like that. That's mostly like I'm concerned with these like little trees where I could have a rabbit just like take out 100 trees. For the bigger stuff, I find once they get to a certain size, you're usually pretty good on vole and rabbit damage. But while they're getting established, it helps to have a little bit of a collar or a wrap that can kind of grow and stretch with the tree as it grows. Scott, do you have any experience with it? You're kind of on a little piece of the former Mill Creek Ravine, right? And so
Yeah,
probably
so we rely a lot on coyotes.
Yes. Oh my God. So
Yeah,
at the nursery.
So the coyotes are nice because we don't have much rabbit problem at all. Because we have coyotes coming in and out of that ravine all the time. So it's nice to have those there. Definitely any of the younger trees, we skirt them for sure. We wrap them and keep them wrapped pretty much all year long. And hopefully that prevents, any damage for that type of thing there. And we haven't had much damage actually in our orchard at all. We're pretty lucky. And I'm certain it's mostly because of the coyotes that helps keep that.
It's funny you mentioned coyotes.
What do you wrap them with? Just as a question, what do you guys find works best for wrapping them?
We just used a plastic mesh that we purchased at Apache. And we just basically 3 stakes, and with we left some room for it to grow because they were quite small. Some of them were a little bigger, like the sea buckthorns. And that worked really well this year. There was no damage whatsoever. And we do get a lot of rabbits. And so we were fortunate so far.
Yeah. Places like Apache will sell it's like a white kind of coil and it just sort of wraps around the tree. They're like $1 each. They're very inexpensive.
Mill Creek Nursery also sells them.
Yeah. Yeah. On the note of coyotes though, at one point I thought about fencing off the orchard, but there's so much coyote activity there. I'm worried about keeping the coyotes out. Huge, just always traffic in there. And I'm pretty sure that does 90% of the rabbit and vole monitoring.
Yeah.
Not that that's an option for everybody.
Yeah. So that it is almost 5:15. So I would say, as there are no questions, that we should let you guys go. And you should be getting a recording, and feel free to share with anybody that you think would be interested in learning more about orchards. And I want to thank you guys so much for sharing your expertise with us. If you guys have any ideas, Dustin with Sustainable Food Edmonton, we should make a plug that he's got such a wide variety of talent. If you think of something that maybe he could do a webinar on, you should get a hold of him. Now that you have his email.
Yeah, well, part of my job with SFE is to help promote and provide kind of free consulting for schools working in the Edmonton area specifically. It is Sustainable Food Edmonton, working on urban agriculture projects. And so yeah, if that's something that you want to do, then we can chat, and we can provide some resources to support you.
Cool.
Well,
Again.
thank you so much.
Yes, it was great.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming out.
Yes. Have a good evening, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you. Dustin,
Hi.
I will be getting a hold of you.
Okay, great. Perfect.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Night.
Bye.
Yeah.
So Dustin, we should have a chat again about moving forward with the other webinar ideas.
Yeah. Yes.
We have
yes, we should.
It's getting busy. We are
What have
having.
you guys have you done aquaponics? This one. What other ones are planned?
Well, we kind of created a list, which I have in a Google document somewhere. I'd have to find it and pull it up. I think we had one on funding, like finding funding, which we thought would be useful, but maybe not like really sexy to start with.
Yeah, I can help on that one for sure. I
Yeah.
love looking for grants and
Yeah,
applying for
I
grants.
love getting grants. I don't
Yeah,
like
getting
applying for them.
I'm just going to
Yeah.
look at the webinars.
I think we had one that was like container gardening, one that was maybe on
container.
like,
Beekeeping,
oh yeah,
Chickens.
beekeeping was one.
chickens in the classroom, greenhouses. There
I
we
know
got
somebody who
Scott.
could do that one.
Yeah. Raised beds and containers.
Our greenhouse is getting a massive influx of money right now.
That's great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're getting a new weather station, and all the old controls are being replaced with digital touchscreen, and
That's great.
yeah.
I mean, the age of it, it was like, it was time, right? And I was worried that between you and me, I was worried that like the school is looking at this infrastructure, realizing that it needs maintenance. And it's kind of a dangerous point, right? Where the school either goes, get rid of it, or yes, let's throw some energy and resources
I
behind
was
it.
scared, and that's why I'm trying to change and grow this program too. Like,
Yeah.
because I was scared they were going to shut her down, but.
Okay. Another one was, and this is Scott again, plant nurseries. So your nursery's outdoor, Dustin, but I wonder Scott's nursery's indoors. And then we said outdoor classrooms and nature deficit, menu planning and food literacy, and then on the land Indigenous education. So in May 6th, we've got Farm School from BC and Farm to Cafeteria Canada are going to talk about what BC and Quebec are doing for their, like, trying to get government to get more local food into schools. And so they're going to talk about that on May 6th. But then we could have something maybe the end of May, beginning of June. The greenhouses might be a good thing to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
that might
sorry. No, we already decided. I mean, we had already said creating a school urban ag network. That's what we had talked about doing in June.
Okay, just the idea of, right.
Yep.
That's June?
Yeah, that's what we said.
Right. And May, what did we say?
May, oh, we didn't say anything for May.
Okay.
So really this farm to school thing might be fine for me. And then then we said September would be the funding.
Right.
I got that farm to school grant. I got 10,000 from them.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm just sitting on it. They told me I'm allowed to not spend it right now because we're not serving
Sure.
food at all right now. But
Yeah.
Hey, when you said like on the grant thing, you mentioned Element. Was it expensive to do soil tests with them?
that was part of the Alex took care of that. So I actually never found out the individual
great.
cost on that, but
Yeah.
it was part of his quote was to do that. So
Nice.
yeah.
Anybody that's talked about soil testing, it's
Mhm.
expensive. So I wonder, he must have been sending other samples in maybe and got it under the same. So lucky you. I think that partnering with him, that was amazing.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
He also is heavily involved with Operation Fruit Rescue and the work over at the orchard in at Macaulay.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's just a good kind of community-minded guy.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So how about if we get together in May and then talk about what we want to do for June?
Sure.
Because maybe we'll decide it's not time to create the network. Maybe we'll decide we better do greenhouses or.
Yeah.
So what would we be looking at, like, for a greenhouse webinar? Like, would we look for people who have a greenhouse, people who want a greenhouse? Because
I think it would be people that have them, because when you and Christian presented to us at the school food symposium, people just want to hear that. They just want to hear what do you do with your greenhouses? How do you get them? Because Christian raised money for his one. It strikes me that somebody else had also talked about they had just got it or they were installing it. Was that Ontario? I can't remember if he said he already had one or they were fundraising. Anyway, we could just put it out there to all those guys and just say, have you got anything on greenhouses you want to contribute? So do you guys figure maybe greenhouses in June then?
Could be. It would be nice to find somebody too who might be able to contribute from the who's just set up a greenhouse or is in the process of setting up a greenhouse.
Yeah.
And
so
I
there's
feel
a teacher in Calgary who I think they're just building one. He's been using his rooftop, and I think they just got funding to build a little greenhouse. Robert Thirsk High School or something like that.
Yeah, I think they do lots of gardening stuff.
And so they have a program called they have a program also called Natural Science. I think that's what they called theirs as well. And if I can remember that guy's name now, I just like it right on the tip of my tongue. The guy who's running that program, but he.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to share this with you now, Scott, so that you can contribute to it.
Yeah, because it would be nice to I love the idea of hearing and learning about existing programs that have greenhouses, but it'd be nice if there was like a little bit of a nugget in there to be like, oh, and if this is something you're interested in doing, it's like here is an avenue you could pursue, or like here's a school that's in the process of setting something up, so that it's not like only something that we did 50 years ago and are no longer setting up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I've shared it with you, Scott. So hopefully, if you think about his name, you could throw it in there. Okay, so I've taken creating the school urban ag network out of June, and maybe we'll decide to do that either September or October.
That might be a good one, kind of like, I mean, sort of what we're trying to do with these little things is like, I mean, there's been a group of people meeting once a month, right? I mean, like, there's not a lot of that happens amongst like teachers to be able to share what's going on and get people excited about these things. So I think I'd be okay keeping to build momentum on these little presentations, and then showcase something along those lines.
If you were going to do beekeeping, when would be a time to do beekeeping? Would it be in the spring?
Man, bees are out now. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We could do a beekeeping one the time to get bees is the spring, but sort of too late, right? And there's not going to be many schools who are like, we're going to get bees now. Like if you weren't already on it, it's not going to happen. But I guess the tricky thing is there's not a lot of schools that have bees. I've kept bees with students as part of the Northlands like urban 4-H club.
I think Hardesty has something. I think.
Oh, Hardesty.
Yeah, okay. I think they either have they have a beekeeper teacher there, and he's
probably Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. So he
I
might be a
signed
good
up.
person
I
to
just
bring
got approved actually for
No way.
a little bee nest thing
Cool.
from the University of Guelph.
Oh, wow.
They're gonna, it's in the mail right now, and I get this little PVC pipe thing. And
Oh,
it's-
like a native bee.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so basically it keeps track of the bees and that go in there. These are just solitary bees. And so the solitary bees that go in there make their nest and then use it all summer long, that type of thing. And then I send it back to them at the end and they do DNA testing on
Oh,
it. So.
wow. Very cool. Anyway, okay, so beekeeping, that might have to hold over till like next January, because if people want to get ready, then they'd need months ahead to get organized.
Did those bees survive, by the way, that you saved from that tree?
Yeah, they're still kicking.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, surprisingly.
Okay,
Um,
so school greenhouses in June, and we will start brainstorming who would present. So Dustin for sure, and Scott.
Well, I helped with the little greenhouse there, but I don't know if I'm an expert on school greenhouses. So I'm happy to support and find people and answer any questions I might know. But I feel like if we could find, if Scott and maybe one or two other people were willing to present on what they're doing, that would probably be better off.
Okay.
But like L.Y. Cairns, there's, what is his name, Gerald? They got little greenhouses there. I want to say Lazert has been playing around with tiny little greenhouses. So there are schools for sure.
Okay.
So
Well-
Leah Andrews is one of the teachers at Robert Thirsk.
Hmm.
I can't find the guy's name. I don't know her. I've never met her, I don't think, but that's one of the names of the people at Robert Thirsk who would be involved with that program.
Alberta Food Matters, we could put it out to our 4-H and to the North Peace Applied Research with Nora and just see if I'm sure that they should know some beekeepers. Alrighty. So
I mean, the Alberta government even right now is totally on board with greenhouses, like agriculture. And well, I think it was an Alberta government report, and they called the Southern Alberta the greenhouse capital of the world, or at least the prairies. But yeah, they think that greenhouses business is going to be booming in Alberta over the.
did you see that guy from Olds? His name is Yanni. Anyway, he brought the concept of what they do in northern China, those greenhouses, which are just using geothermal energy. But what they also do is at night, they roll down these massive covers to seal the heat in. And then in the daytime, it's just this little motor rolls them back up as soon as the sun's hitting the glass or the plastic. And they're massive.
Yeah,
Anyway,
those are the passive heating and passive greenhouses. Yeah.
So I've seen a couple of presentations on that. And to my mind, if Alberta was to do that in Southern Alberta, particularly, my God, Northern China, that's how they feed that many people, is those greenhouses are everywhere. Every foot is full of greenhouse. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So June is greenhouses, and we'll get to work finding some presenters. So Scott, if you can talk to Leah, if that's possible, is that Hardesty teacher? Is that who you think that is?
Well, at Hardesty, I just brought that up for the beekeeping. I thought there was a teacher there who did beekeeping.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put out the feelers for some beekeeping teachers, hopefully. I'm glad to have you on board, Scott. This is amazing.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. I mean, I think it's good to have this network, and I totally think that we should keep it up, like you say there, Dustin. And
Yeah, it's nice to do a little, they're not giant time commitments, right? An hour, 4:15, it's fairly early. No one's given up dinner yet, right?
I know
So
the funding one will be a good one too. I like that one because it's whenever you start talking about funding, that's when you usually see a lot of notes being taken, I find.
yeah.
Well, definitely. Yep. All righty.
Okay.
Good session. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, see ya.
Great. Bye.
Okay. Bye.